Well, welcome to Becoming More. It's interesting, Tony. Many people want to become more, and yet think about a butterfly. It gets to soar through the air, yet what does it go through to give up being that caterpillar? Most people want to stay the caterpillar, yet fly like a butterfly.
Right.
Yeah, we got to do something different to become more. And you and I are not, we're accustomed to that.
Right.
Different is part of our life. We're always looking for better ways to do things, different ways to do things. And we've had the opportunity to coach coaches and for you to coach some of the very best business people, some of the very best realtors in the world. So what do you think about becoming more?
Well, you were a perfect example. You wanted to do something different. You got into a new business. In fact, you got into a business that at the level that I don't think I ever heard of anybody ever doing that was in real estate for a long time. You sold 104 houses your first year, 1978. We were all selling 5 or 6 houses a year and thought we were doing spectacular. And you sold 104.
Well, that tells people how old I am.
Right.
So there you go, 1978. Let's go back to there. I think the big thing, Tony, is that we all have a goal. And as John Maxwell says, we have uphill dreams with downhill habits. And I start real estate. It was a man's world. People don't realize that now. You were in real estate back then. I mean, how many women besides one was in every office, right?
Not many. You didn't see many like you do today.
Well, and as I went from office to office, 11 offices saying, we already have our token woman. And the 12th office finally said, yes, you can hang your license here. So I felt like I owed something to them. I didn't want to not succeed because after all, everybody was trusting that only men could do this job, right? So it was kind of like fuel to the fire. Plus, most of them offered me a secretarial position, which really added fuel to the fire. And after I got my license to where I had a place to hang it, I went home and I thought, oh my gosh, what have I done? I couldn't even afford a babysitter. What am I going to do now? So the kids were playing in their little red radio flyer wagon, right?
Remember those?
And the little red wagon, I put them in and started going door to door and just talking to everybody.
So how many days a week did you go door to door?
Well, we were out pretty much 6 days a week. I took Sundays off for certain. And yet we would go out in the morning. It was cooler then and more people were at home. We also would go to a park, eat our lunch, have some fun, swing on the swings, because it couldn't be that boring for all the kids, right? Well, pretty soon, the mothers that were home that had kids, my kids got to know their kids and they would say, oh, hey, let them sit here and you can go talk to other people. So everybody was kind of in it to help me because they knew how I was working diligently to get ahead. And then I started thinking about how could I get people together?
Before I go there, can you answer one question?
Yes.
How many hours a day did you do that? It sounds like you were doing it all day long.
Oh, pretty much. We like I said, we took time off for lunch and
so
to
what
go
time
to the
would
park
you start in the morning?
We would generally out by 9.
Okay, and you'd knock doors until when?
Until the kids wouldn't let me anymore. Most of the time, though, they were happy because as we got going into this little area called Countryside, they knew and they established so many friends that they didn't want to go home because the person would let them stay. In fact, it was so interesting. I was doing a class one day and one of the ladies raised her hand and she said, I'm at this class today because you knocked on my door when you were selling real estate. And I said, really? I said, I apologize. I don't remember exactly. And she said, it was in Countryside and you brought your kids in that little red wagon. And it really made me feel good because she actually verified what I had been saying all the time. And she stood and told the story from her perspective as a homeowner. And she was one of them that let my kids play with her kids while I went out. And yet I was always looking at what do the people desire? What can I do differently? And so at that time, there were lots of Tupperware parties. I don't know if you've ever been to a Tupperware party or not.
I've heard of them.
Yes, yet the Tupperware hostess, right, would gather everybody together. And I thought they'd get like a piece of Tupperware for free based on how much was sold. And at that time, these gold necklaces were really popular. Well, my dad was a jeweler, so he could get the gold necklaces like wholesale, right? And I said, you get this many couples together, I'll come in and teach you how to invest in real estate, what to look for, and you'll get one of these gold necklaces. So I started doing investment parties instead of Tupperware parties, and that kind of helped get it going. And at one of the parties, a person said, oh my gosh, the kids want to go have pictures with Santa Claus, and those lines are so long. Well, opportunity just was going, do it, do it, do it, right?
Yep.
So at that point, I rented out the clubhouse and did Polaroid pictures back then, where you could actually get them right away, and took pictures with Santa Claus. The next year, though, I had a better idea. It was very different. I actually went door to door telling the people when I would be there with Santa Claus. So if they didn't believe in
Right.
Santa Claus, or the kids were older, or because of religious beliefs, they didn't want him to be at their door, I didn't go. Other than that, they knew at 1 o'clock I was going to be on this block, at 1:30 on this block. And Santa Claus and I went door to door, meeting the people, greeting the people, and I had to be certain to tell the kids, if your parents ever want to buy a home or sell a home, you better call me, because I know Santa Claus.
Right. Great
So
idea.
it was like always coming up with different things.
So what, expand on that? Well, you went door knocking with Santa Claus.
Yes,
I
yes.
don't know anybody that's ever gone door knocking with Santa Claus.
It was fun.
So if it's an idea you'd like to attempt this year, find a Santa Claus that would go door knocking with you. I think it's a fabulous idea.
Well,
So-
and in the summertime, we did a pancake breakfast. I could not do all that by myself. So invited the entire office to help. And we had all our signs lined up, and we had sausage and pancakes, and we had all the grills going. Of course, we had hot air balloons that they could ride in. They were tethered. And we had Shetland ponies and games, and it was quite the ordeal. It got to a point, we did it the same time, the first Saturday of June every single year. And the best part about it is we got to the point we needed the police to actually take care of the traffic.
Wow.
Because we had so many people that attended. It went from 6 a.m. to 11, and we were kicking people out at 11 o'clock saying, time's up, it's over. Yet those are the things, it was always about giving to the people, Tony. What do people desire, and what will help solidify my name or the company's name in their mind?
Mhm. Talk a little bit about what you did to stay in touch with them other than door knocking, because I think that's a key aspect. It's the consistency of the communication with them.
And as we talk about all the time, consistency. I mean, I've had coaches in my life. You were the best coach I ever had over the phone.
Over the phone.
Yeah, yeah.
Over the
Well,
phone.
once we started dating and all that, forget it. You could not coach me face to face. Still can't. Yet over the phone, it was excellent. And I did things like, I was really big on thank you cards. 5 thank you notes went out every single day. When I would list a property, I would already have the thank you card written, and it was addressed, stamp on it, everything. And I would go by the mailbox on the way home and drop it in. So they got it the next day, and they were going, wow, this lady is efficient, right?
Right.
So it's always looking ahead. And my dad taught me something that has always stuck with me. I was in 9th grade, and he said, Dianna, whatever you want to be, it does not matter yet. I want you to be successful. And you'll be successful when you realize every single person wears a sign around their neck. And I said, okay. He says, do you know what the sign says? I said, no. And you know what, Tony? I didn't care. I was in 9th grade. Who cares about, I was interested in boys and cheerleading and working and making money and all those things. And so the fun part was, he kept asking me every night at dinner, what does the sign say? And he drove me crazy to where I wanted to figure it out. And I was sitting there at a drugstore soda fountain, that really dates me, having a
Right.
vanilla Coke, which dates me even more,
Right.
and talking to this lady. And when I got up to leave, because I was going to go to the movie with my friend, and she said, thanks for conversing with me and making me feel important. And wow, it was like the light bulb went off. I knew that's what that said. And when I got home that night, I said, Dad, I figured it out. I know what the sign says. It says, make me feel important. And he said, yeah. And some people have a little tiny business card or a little pin, that says, make me feel important. And others have a billboard with a neon lights going, make me feel important. And when you do that, Dianna, you'll always be successful. Only always tell the truth.
Right.
And yet look for the good in people and let them know that.
Great. So on your thank you notes, those are important. I
Yes.
remember reading a book, and he was the CEO of a company. He used to write thank you notes to his vice president. And what made him continue is that he'd walk in their office and those thank you notes were pinned on the wall going, these are people who are executive vice presidents with thank you notes pinned on their walls. How did you make your thank you notes really important to the people receiving them?
Well, it's all in the words that we portray to them. Always make it something about them. Most of the time I had to do a PS because I didn't know them that well until I had been in their home. Yet, what is it about a gift? Just not thank you for the gift.
Right.
It's how are you going to use the gift? What are you going to do? What does it mean to you? If it's something you've always wanted, then say that. I received a thank you note the other day from someone that had been to California and I had done some things for, and they had bought a little gift. And they said, you were so kind to help me with this. They didn't end there. They went on about every little thing I had said and what it meant to them, how they implemented it, what the results they had gotten. And it was one of the best thank you notes I remember receiving because it had meaning behind it. So I would just say, make certain that you have meaning behind your thank you notes and make them special. I remember one year, over 350 coaches gave me a magnificent Christmas gift. And so it was jumping out of an airplane. I don't know if they wanted me to jumping out of an airplane. I don't know now that I think about that, and many other things. And yet it was challenging to write every single one of them a thank you note. And I did.
So you wrote all 350 a thank you note.
Absolutely, because they had taken their time to do something special for me. And that was challenging for me. I had to get up earlier, stay up later, yet every coach mattered to me so much. And I don't know if they know it to this day, but I loved each and every one of them in their own way. They all had gifts that had been given to them. And I just wanted so much for them to magnify those gifts.
Great. So in a real estate world, how did you when you got a listing, how do you make that personal? Or other than thank you for the listing?
Oh, you mean the thank you note,
Yep.
personal? Yep. I would say some of the things I would do with the money. For example, when your home sells, I want you to know that part of your money will go towards this foundation, or with 2 kids, in football, and you know how much that costs. You have helped my children so much, and that will mean the world to me. May I always help you and your children in the future. Just helping them achieve their goal and letting them know how much it meant to me. I did one though. It was the year I sold 104 homes. And the next year I thought, I'm going to send a handwritten thank you note to every single one of those people. And I ended each one with, I get by with a little help from my friends, because I loved that song from the Beatles, right? And I would sing it a lot. And one of the people called me and they said, Dianna, I think I know what you mean by this, because you called me your friend and you said you get by with a little help from your friends, meaning referrals, yet that song is about drugs. And I went, what? Did I just tell everyone? What did I do? And I was I mean, I was petrified because I didn't do stuff like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, what do they think? Anyway, I had to let it go and move
Right.
on, yet it was quite funny.
Yep. So you were one of the first people to ever have an assistant. How did you come up with that thought? And
Well,
think
because I
differently?
couldn't get all the notes and the calls and everything done and the lead generation. And I was with Francie. She was a wonderful lady that I had sold a home to. And she wanted to just make some extra money that when her kids went to kindergarten for a few hours, that what could she do? And I said, "Oh, would you be willing to help me make these calls and check on things?" And we didn't have brochures and things like that in those days. And yet I wanted to make certain that when a home was shown, I got feedback and that the sellers got the feedback. So I had her start doing things like that. And the office said, you can't have an assistant, or no, I'm sorry. They said you can't have a secretary. They weren't
Right.
assistants back then.
Yeah. Okay.
And we can only have one person at the desk at a time. So I gave her the desk and I went out and knocked doors. Then this wonderful thing came about called the Coles directory. I could actually call people and didn't have to go door to door. That was so much better, especially when it was summertime and hot, or in the wintertime and the wind was blowing and the snow was coming, right?
Right.
So I loved that. But Francie helped me out a lot. And it was, nobody had heard of that. And you know what? You're going to be ridiculed a little bit when you do different.
Okay.
Get used to
how
it.
did it show up? From other realtors or people
Oh,
in your office? Or?
Well, the greatest part about it is realtors would talk about how crazy I was. And some of the guys would say, you're going to list with a housewife? She can do your dishes for you. I mean, crazy things. And people would say, doesn't that bother you? And I'd go, no, because they're spreading my name everywhere. Let them talk more, for heaven's sakes. That was great.
Great. So last thing is, you also were early on in getting a buyer's agent. How did you set that up and what kind of standards did you have?
Well, that's a great question. First of all, I didn't call him a buyer's agent because we didn't know what to call him. I called him an assistant. And it was mainly because I was going in for some surgery and they said I was going to be out for a while. And I did not want my clients to not be taken care of. I knew that I could list over the phone. I knew I could respond to them talking about price reductions. All of that can be done over the phone, yet you can't show buyers over the phone. And therefore, it was my son. And I said, great, I'm going to help you get your real estate license. I know you'll be great at it. And he was. And he came to work taking out buyers for me during that time, and then stayed on with me to help at the Kokoszka group.
So what kind of standard did you have for him?
Well, he listened to me for 2 weeks on the phone. He wasn't, he couldn't do anything until he listened to the scripts, dialogues, how I said things, how I answered things, answering him back. And then he had to give those scripts and dialogues back to me.
Great. So you had to pass the test.
Right. And I would always say now to the buyer, let's say the buyer's name is Barbara, and we'll end with this. I would say, Barbara, I've looked over the homes that Sean is going to show you. And out of those homes, I believe there is one that you're going to absolutely love. I'm not going to tell you which one. I want you to tell me and then let me know if it's true. And I had looked over the phones, I'm not going to lie, and or the properties. And yet I kind of thought I knew which one. And when she'd come back and say, oh, I really like this one. Is that the one? I'd say, I'm not sure if it was or not. I'm glad you found one you liked, though.
Great.
And it worked out great.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So what's the one point you want to leave with everybody on this podcast?
Well, the point I always make is you can't get to better until you get to different. What are you willing to do different? More importantly, what is being done that no one else is doing that you're willing to take the risk? Maybe the risk to look bad or to fail, it doesn't matter. I failed so many times. Yeah, I failed so many times. And yet I think we fail our way to success. And too many people want success after success. I just wanted failure after failure because I knew I'd get better. And it is all about becoming more. Thanks.